You don't know a person until you've seen them in a variety of different circumstances. The minute you're physically intimate with someone, you can establish feelings for another person. You could establish attachment to another person. You could establish some affinity for another person. If one person is all in and the other is like, I'm just testing the waters. Oh, I'm just dipping my toe. There is a person that's going to get hurt. Two people have their own unique traumas, usually centered around their past relationships, and they're bonding together in the shared experience of it. If you don't outgrow that experience, one person's going to outgrow it and they're not going to be any satisfied anymore because then the other person is still stuck in the past. How someone describes their past relationship and how charged they are will give you a clue of actually how present they can be in a future relationship, how emotionally mature they can be in a new relationship, because the more charged a person is, the more time it's going to take for them to heal if they actually do the healing work.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here once again at Jill Collins Connections, and we have a returning guest, the number one guest I've had so far. So I'm really excited to share him with you again. If you haven't seen the other interview we did a few months back, definitely check it out. But I think this one's going to be even better. So I want to welcome Jonathon Aslay to the interview. He is one of America's leading midlife dating and relationships coaches. He specializes in helping women over 40 find a partner who is ready to commit and is emotionally healthy. So I'm excited about that. He has a best-selling book, Self-Love. What the heck is self-love anyway? Which has helped me so much and has also transformed the lives of countless women. He has a huge YouTube following and has over 182,000 subscribers. So definitely check out his channel. It's going to be fantastic. You'll love it. So I want to dive right in. Welcome, Jonathon. I'm so glad to have you today.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. By the way, what makes me number one? I don't know what that means.
You're number one to me. I tell you, you have transformed. If I would, as I said to you before, if I would have met you a year and a half ago, my life would be a little bit different today. I mean, 2 years ago. So yeah. So, I've just learned so much from you. And I know so many women have been affected and have made better decisions about their dating life and their relationships because of you. So we're all grateful to you.
Oh, well, it's interesting. I had a conversation today with a client who just finished my 6-week boot camp a month and a half earlier. And she's now in a relationship with someone. I mean, like I always say to clients, or prospective clients, I go, it's amazing the minute you make an investment in yourself, how quickly the universe opens up doors. And so this was a man that she actually almost rejected. Her husband, who had passed away some years ago, was like an Army Ranger. I mean, if you could picture that quintessential, general kind of look. I mean, he wasn't a general. I think he was a colonel, but, like 6'2", gray at the temples, really handsome guy. And this man is 5'7". And she said, Jonathon, if I didn't have you in the back of my voice, I would have missed out on this great guy, because she's 5'7", so they're the same height. And he's a great guy. I mean, there's so much. Her husband passed away, so she's in that, stage of her life where it's not about building a family or doing anything. She just wants to experience life, and they have so much in common. They have so much alike, and he's kind, he's compassionate, he's considerate. It's only 6 weeks old. But she says, you know what? I've been dating for a couple years and I've just met a lot of what she feels like is duds. And what I'm grateful for, that I could be on her journey. And she said, you know what? If I encapsulated the one thing you kept saying to me is, don't judge a guy by his height, judge him by the size of his heart. Mm-hmm. And this guy is 6'5" when it comes to heart. So I'm just grateful that I can be in a position to put people to find really good, happy relationships. And we'll see. It's still fledgling. We have no idea, but you know what? She feels very optimistic.
Well, I know you have done so much of that for so many people, and I love your stories. And I'm so grateful. I stumbled upon your channel a while back, or I think it was earlier this year. And just the way you do live interviews or live questions and answers, you do live calls, and it's just so amazing. And people get to just really get to you directly. And you also do have a VIP program that you actually work with people more closely with the mentorship program, which we can go into in a little bit, because I think that's so important too.
Sure.
If you really want more information, that's something that people can actually reach you, and you're kind of the big brother, for us. And so it's nice to feel protected and taken care of. And I feel like I have so much more clarity on what it is I'm looking for. And not just that, it's your book your book is to learn about self-love. And when I show up with self-love and that I really value myself, I don't waste my time. I think to myself, a few years ago, my husband died over 7 years ago. And when I started dating again, I'm looking back, I'm going, what the hell was I thinking? It's like, so I think our standards start to raise. And at the same time, it's not about being arrogant about it. It's just being like, our heart opens up more and we're more accepting, and we have this, we can actually deflect and have discernment too at the same time, as to know who's right for us. And then go, you know what? I love when you always say, is when we swipe in a dating app, is you say, I send you love. I send you love. Yeah. And not just going like, oh, hell no. Which
because you're telling yourself no too. It's interesting. I had an awareness earlier this morning. I had someone wrote, "Why do you work with women?" And I was processing that. And as I was reflecting upon it, I was thinking back after my divorce. I dated in a very myopic, self-centered way. Mm-hmm. And what I mean to say is, I had this, hole inside of me, and I dated with the desire that someone would fill the hole, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of this. And so what happened was, I recognized that women are these beautiful, nurturing, compassionate, empathetic creatures. And I would find myself, even though I was honest with everyone, saying, when I say honest, I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. Let's take it slow, blah, blah, blah. I certainly didn't want to take it slow with sex. I wanted to have sex the minute I met them. I was like, when women hear men are hunters and they love the chase, there's this fantasy that you women have this, oh, he's hunting relationship. No, he's hunting to get in your pants. You can't give credit for that and make it the whole narrative of the dating process. So to kind of finish to this story, I recognized there were a lot of women who felt they got hurt by me. And what I meant to say was, I opened them up emotionally and then I pulled it away because I wasn't ready. I didn't do this intentionally. I didn't do this maliciously. I didn't do this with any forethought. I was just unconscious to my behavior. And because there was no real consequences to this, and what I mean to say, other than, you don't want to hurt someone, that's the biggest consequence out of it all. I'm sure I left some women feeling hurt. So why I give advice to women about men is I draw attention to the emotional effects that, for men in particular, going through divorce or going through a breakup or going through a professional crisis in their life or dealing with a contentious ex or going through a contentious divorce. And I'm basically, I've established myself as a woman's big brother. I'm like, my job is to keep your feet on the ground so you don't get sucked into this chemistry narrative that we've all been indoctrinated to believe, that chemistry equals relationship success. So why I focus more on women? Because women tend to be more relational than men. And because of that, women tend to be a little bit more in fantasy than men. I mean, disassociated with reality. And the reality is we're swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality. Your job is to pick the least dysfunctional out of the bunch because everybody's dysfunctional. But my job is to help you avoid the worst of the dysfunctional ones in the bunch.
I love that.
And that doesn't sound very promising. That doesn't sound very promising, but I'm like, you have to recognize we're all messed up. It's just a matter of degrees.
It's true. And I love the way you said, and you said before, is attention doesn't equal intention. And just because we're getting attention or there's chemistry is that, we sometimes use chemistry for that. It's like, oh, we have chemistry, everything must be aligned. And so
in all fairness, and I apologize for interrupting, I may have heard that from Matthew Hussey, so I don't want to take credit for it. I think I heard that from some other coach. I think it was Matthew Hussey who said that. and I might have shared that publicly. So if I want to make sure that I don't take credit for something that isn't, but to the same degree I subscribe to attention doesn't mean intention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think all that being said, it sounds like to me, because chemistry can be mistaken. And then we oftentimes, I think we aren't prepared. And I think what you do such a good job is you help us get clear on what it is that we're looking for and what to expect, And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the mechanics of building and co-creating a relationship. How do we start that? Like, what is it that we need to be? Now, to be clear, it's a committed relationship and not something that you usually call as transactional, where we're just looking for, you give me this, I give you that. It's someone who's really ready, right?
Yeah. So, today's dating market environment, particularly for those in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, find themselves in either friends with benefits dynamics, situationships, or casual relationships. These are casual, meaning there might be monogamy and exclusivity, but there's no real meat to the relationship other than spending time together. So what I'm an encouragement of is human beings to really make a stand for what they want. And to that extent, I'm here to encourage either marriage or living together. Why? Because that establishes the marriage or living together is about as close as you can get to all in. Okay. Why do we need all in? Because all in says, look, and this starts on the this starts at the time two people are physically intimate with one another. Now, this goes against all the dating advice and narrative, but let me just allow me, everyone listening, a little latitude here. The minute you're physically intimate with someone, you can establish feelings for another person. You could establish attachment to another person. You could establish some affinity for another person. If one person is all in and the other is like, I'm just testing the waters. Oh, I'm just dipping my toe. Oh, you're just a placeholder in my life. There is a person that's going to get hurt. And just like what I said earlier, I did this very unconsciously, very without forethought, that my actions have consequences. Meaning, so all in is an awareness that you are going to be intentional about the process. B, you're going to have the other person's feelings in your mind, in your consciousness when it comes to expressing your own feelings, recognizing that people get attached and that you're intentional about the process of getting to know someone. Intentional and not cavalier, ambivalent, ambiguous. Because when a person's searching for companionship, connection, and sex, the missing piece for most people today is commitment. I mean, I'm committed to wanting to see if you're the one. Like, that's what all in says. Like, look, I'm committed to investing the right amount of time to say, I want to know if you're the one. Okay. But if you're ambivalent to wanting to be in an all in relationship, then you can get companionship, connection, and sex. Someone's going to eventually get hurt because one person is going to get attached over the other. Mm-hmm. So all in says, I'm going all in to seeing if this is something real. And, I'm thinking back to something. Can I just give you a wild thought?
Yeah, please.
Oh, about 4, 5, or 6 years ago, I don't remember when it was, Ariana Grande and Pete Davidson got engaged after 3 weeks. Okay. Yeah. Now, a lot of people poo-pooed this. They've only known each other 3 weeks. But what is an engagement? It says, I'm exploring all in. Okay. That's what it says. I'm exploring all in. And when we get married, that's going to be the all in. So it's an agreement that we're going to see if this is something viable. Well, I'm sure they had sex prior to this 3 weeks, but I could be wrong. But let's say they did or didn't. At the time you have sex, you should make a declaration of something. I'm exploring this from an all-in perspective. Are you in the same place? 90% of people will say, no, I'm not in the same place. But what that tells you is they're not ready. Because when someone is ready, they're willing to go when I say all in, I don't mean I'm going to pay your bills and, I'm going to, be on title on your home or anything like, I'm not talking about financially all in. I'm talking about all in from the exploration of seeing if we're a fit for one another.
Okay.
I'm done pontificating now.
I love that. And so sex is, that is the point when there's a decision that's made. So what are the,
I think, well, sex more than once. Okay. Because you could have once and never see them again. If you're going to have regular sex, that's the time to be clear.
okay. And so then, I'm so curious then. So what is it like? What is commitment when we're saying all in? Because I think that's where you said, what does commitment look like for someone in a relationship? Like, what do you ask a prospective partner? Like, what are you supposed to do? How do you know that? Like you said, we're not going to be on the same page. So how do I know my partner and I are on the same page? We say, oh yeah, I want a committed relationship. Oh, me too. Right. Oh yeah, that's great. Let's do it. Okay. We're having sex. We have sex. And then as you've said in many of your talks is that, one just kind of starts to back off and disappear. And then let's wait and see how it goes. My personal favorite line of all time is, you go, what the hell just happened here? Oh, we were in a committed relationship. So how do we know what that is?
So I want to answer that, but let me just rewind for just a second because I want to be clear about all in.
Okay.
The all in I'm talking about is basically saying, I'm going all in to see if you're right for me. That's all. I'm not saying, anything more than that. I'm just going all in to see if you're right for me. Commitment to me looks like this when two people establish they're going to explore a relationship together and they're going to spend regular time together before they agree to either moving in together or getting married. All like commitment looks like this to me, Jonathon Aslay. You can subscribe to this if not. Where we spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal or our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to declaring something serious within the first 3 to 6 months of our meeting, and then something serious within 1 year of either moving in together or getting married. Now, that's mine, okay? You can adopt mine. You can say, I don't want to see someone as much, or I want to see someone more. But what it is, folks, I want everyone to recognize something. You don't know a person until you've seen them in a variety of different circumstances. Okay? For example, travel. Great way to know a person. Okay? And by the way, for those watching, I'm a terrible person to travel with. I'm an anxious traveler. I need to be with someone that's such a seasoned traveler and that can hold my hand because I'm like a child traveling. I'm aware of my dysfunction. I just get anxious when I'm in a place I don't know. I get nervous. I'm aware of it. I do breathing exercises, but it's just, something about me. But I'm okay. Why I brought this up is I'm using this as a perfect example. I'm not the easiest person to travel with, but I'm also aware of my dysfunction, if you will. Imagine I'm brand new to someone. I don't tell them any of this. I'm not even aware of this, and I'm a basket case to travel with. That could be a sign of challenges in the relationship if you're not capable of communicating these challenges with one another. So social activities, hobbies, mutual interest, all of these different circumstances is how we assess a person to see if we're really compatible with them. And it's important to do these variety of things because, during COVID, people got together as an example and all they did was hang out, Netflix and chill. You don't know someone sitting in Netflix and chill. You know someone in different circumstances. Oh, and by the way, family and friends being another one of those examples. Teamwork building skills, both in your personal and your professional life. All of this gives you insight if two people can work together because teamwork ultimately is the purpose of a partnership. Teamwork. I want everyone to really sit with this notion is what is teamwork? Teamwork is, my granddaughter's having a birthday party and I want you to come and I want you to help out. And I might need you to maybe even change a diaper while I'm with you, doing this. And that's part of speaking for those that are, in their 50s and 60s or older. but it's being part of a team. It might be going to a company Christmas party and, listen, I want to show you off to everybody. That's being part of team. It might be, hey, I've got challenges in my professional life. Do you mind let me bounce this off of you so I can get some perspective? That's part of being a team. Hey, you know what? I won't be able to make it to the dry cleaner. Do you mind running out to doing that for me? That's being part of a team. And it's not being a doormat, okay, where it's an imbalanced team. It's like a, Jill, I want you to think of it like two attorneys that decide to start a law firm together. They're partners with one another. And one partner might be good at like bringing in clients, and the other partner might be really good at admin. So, the admin person manages the human resources and all the employees, and they take care of the back end, and this person's the schmoozer. And they don't have to be exactly alike, but they're working in unison with one another. There's a mutual exchange of energy, and the partnership splits the profits at the end of the day. Well, that's how a relationship should be. It's not, this one up, one down narrative that's being sold through the red pill community, or at least that's not my perspective. Some people can adopt that, but I don't believe in this a patriarchal authority in relationships. I like two people co-creating together.
Okay. I love that, because that is really the whole thing is, and we were, before we started the interview, and we talked a couple weeks ago about this, and we said, let's talk about teamwork and relationships, because and I'm glad you clarified that and painted that picture, because I don't think people always think about that. Because as you've said before, when people get married the first time in their 20s or 30s, they're often thinking about the obvious, right? Is what is teamwork then versus now? And you've painted the picture of now in midlife, for those in midlife, and then because what's the incentive to get married again or to be in a relationship? You're not raising kids together, so why do, right?
Well, if you think about it, 50% of first marriages end. Okay. Most of those, their primary shared vision was making baby and raising babies. And I would say of the 50% that don't get divorced, half of those stay together for children's sake. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. Why do second and third marriages end at a much more alarming higher rate of 65 to 75%? Because they're not really conscious. They're thinking with 20-year-old brains, not 40, 50, or 60-year-old brains, about what teamwork is. And actually, if you've been hurt in the past, which most people have, they've been traumatized from their past relationships. They bring this hurt into new relationships, hoping the relationship solves everything. And they never build that teamwork phase. They never build that. I did a video recently called The 4 Stages Men Go Through to Commitment. And I used Tuckman's teamwork model. By the way, everyone can Google this, Tuckman's teamwork model, to illustrate a point. And the teamwork model is this: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Okay, so I'll say forming, storming, norming, and performing. So I use this in the context of relationships, because if a relationship is a team, then this is a professional that kind of analyzed business teams to see how they work. Forming, the initial stage, attraction, chemistry. You're forming this, getting to know one another. The storming is the minute you start to notice the differences from this person, because we all have differences, and how we navigate these differences during the storm can make or break a team or a relationship. Norming is when you can get through your storms, your differences on the same page. And performing means you're now growing. You're growing together as a team, okay? So if you look at any basketball team or football team, they go through these alliterations, but eventually it's to, because we want to perform at our best level. Now, what I didn't share in this video, but what wasn't discussed, or what I later Tuckman added to this, was the 5th stage, and that is adjournment, adjourning. Sometimes people aren't good teammates with one another, so you adjourn from this agreement. Could be we call breakup. We could call that divorce. We could call that, some people adjourn, through passing away. Okay. Like you've experienced. So it's recognizing that if a team isn't working well, it's okay to adjourn. I don't mean the passing away piece, but
Right.
it's okay to adjourn.
Yeah.
And why I'm bringing this to everyone's consciousness is I've witnessed so many men and women stay in unhealthy relationships because they're afraid to adjourn, because they figure it's better to be in something mediocre than not something that's performing. Because I guarantee you, if you're performing well together, you're co-creative, you're intentional, you're growing together, there's no need to adjourn. But some people get stuck in the loop of storm, norm, storm, norm, storm, norm, storm, norm, storm, norm. They're just in a cycle of that. They're not performing. And then they just don't realize they have an option to adjourn.
Wow. That's the fifth one is beautiful. That's just amazing. It's because, yeah, you're right. A lot of times we settle. And especially, I think we get into the scarcity mindset as we get older too, is that, well, I guess this is as good as it's going to get. So I better, it's like we have this fear that we're playing musical chairs and at some point the music's going to stop and there's not going to be a chair for us, and it's like, am I going to, die alone with, my cat and in the, and that's it, and, or whatever the metaphor would be. But it's
maybe.
Yeah. And so it's, I think going back to self-love, it's like, that's where you get so comfortable in your own skin. And say, where I am in this place is like, you know what, if it doesn't happen, I'm actually kind of okay with that. I'm actually really I love my life. I love myself. And I can't say I was there a year ago. And so I'm really happy about that. But I love going back to this thing you said about going between level 2 and 3, or step 2 and 3 is the storming and norming. And that actually almost become a pattern in relationships, I think, where that dysfunction of people, you almost get addicted to that drama. Yeah, I would almost see that becomes drama. When do you think?
Gosh, it's funny. I remember I was speaking to a woman. Her name was Amy Grace. This had to be 2005, 2006, when I was just online dating and I was addicted to just communicating with women. And she said something to me. She said, now she was relating it to women going addicted to the drama. And I didn't know what that meant until I actually started to explore this thing called dating, mating, and relating. And I think it's an unconscious, familiar pattern of, most likely there was a lot of chaos in that person's upbringing. So while it might sound like this is some conscious choice to like, eating ice cream, or bonbons all day long and addicted to sugar, I think for some people, drama was almost their entire way of life. And so what's interesting is some people can get addicted to the drama and stay in these storming, norming patterns, or they meet a person that gives them no drama, and then they run away from those relationships because all they're familiar with is the drama. So all of a sudden they're in this healthy relationship for the first time in their life, possibly. And it's like, it's not drama. So they go, this doesn't work for me because that's all they're familiar with. This is where, personal development, self-help, spiritual work, or what I encapsulate that all into self-love, is going, you don't need the drama to be happy, and neither reject it or need it. What I invite everyone to do is to be intentional in the process of mating with another human being.
Yeah. And this pattern, this drama, I was thinking as you were saying that, the storming and norming, is that when we find something healthy, someone healthy, it seems boring. And it seems, and then it hit me that pattern also can be I've met people like this where it's just like the chemistry is just like, oh my God, and you're just totally enamored by them. And I was thinking, I think I told you that story about the tennis pro I went out with once, and it was like we barely keep our hands off each other, at the table. And I'm like, Jill, this is a accident waiting to happen. This is every bit of my intuition said, get the heck out of here. That's bad. And I did. And it was so right. Because when I said, I don't think this is working. And he basically threw off some very, scathing comment to me. And I went, well, there you go. You learned early. But I think what happens is we mistake that storming and norming, that pattern of drama as chemistry, because there's a trauma bond or something. That all feels like that whole circle of that is like the chemistry and the like a trauma bond where there's two people that are wounded. You've talked about that a lot, and which I knew nothing about until this year, is like how we tend to do that. And then we see the drama and it's like, oh, I'm familiar with your drama matches my drama. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, cool. Oh my God, there's so much chemistry. I feel because there's so much charge. And it feels like, oh, this is a match. But is it?
Yeah. So, when I characterize trauma bonding, I used it in a slightly, well, you were correct, but I'm not using it in the way that therapists use it. What I meant was that two people have their own unique traumas, particularly related to a past relationship. Okay. An ex-spouse usually is the case, or an ex-relationship. So two people are bonding in their individual traumas versus the traditional. If I understand traditional trauma bonding is like what I was explaining before. If you grew up in chaos in your life, you're bonded to the chaos. That's trauma bonding. I was using it in a slightly different narrative, which is where two people have their own unique traumas, usually centered around their past relationships, and they're bonding together in the shared experience of it. Okay. What happens is if you don't outgrow that, that experience, one person's going to outgrow it and they're not going to be any satisfied anymore, because then the other person is still stuck in their narrative. So these are usually people, what I've observed, are stuck in the past. And by the way, if I thought of like a temperature, like I'm trying to think of the electrical charge. Okay. Imagine you touched a socket in the wall and you touch it and you you would just be shocked, right? For a moment. Okay. That's a charge. Okay. If you got hit by a bolt of lightning, it would kill you. If you touched a tiny battery that gave you a little tickly finger, that's a different kind of charge. So I'm just want to share everyone the idea of charge. When a person is talking about their past relationships, pay real close attention to how charged they are. When a person is talking so incessantly negative about a person, that's almost like a lightning bolt, or sticking your finger with a fork while you're in like a pool of water, okay? Versus someone says, you know what, I wasn't in a really great relationship. She wasn't, right for me. I wasn't right for her. We were misaligned with each other. It didn't work out. Almost little or no charge. How someone describes their past relationship and how charged they are will give you a clue of actually how present they can be in a future relationship, how emotionally mature they can be in a new relationship. Because the more charged a person is, the more time it's going to take for them to heal, if they actually do the healing work.
Wow. I love that. That is so special. I love the way you said that, is giving us the varying degrees of charges. And it's true. It's like someone will say, yeah, well, I have to pay alimony, but it's the mother of my child. And then they move on. Okay.
Yeah.
And then somebody else who goes, that bitch, I got to pay this alimony and I have to work for her. And it's just, and blah, blah, blah. And you're just like,
and she cheated on me and she was an alcoholic. And oh, by the way, the narcissist is the one that, oh my fucking God. I'm so tired of hearing how everybody you ever met in your life was a narcissist. Humans are just naturally self-centric, okay? It's just kind of or myopic. And yes, some people are worse than others. I get it. But whenever I see narcissist on a dating app, I'm like, run, Forrest, run, because that's a person that hasn't healed. If you're still talking about it, you're still charged by it. And you can't expect the new person to heal you from that. You gotta get to a place of healing. Well, you can be in any type of transactional relationship, but if you want to have a co-creative conscious relationship, then the charge of your past is almost minimal.
Oh my God.
And by the way, I'm judging here, okay, folks. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. This is just my perspective on things. But I've noticed one thing. You see patterns. The reason why 75% people get divorced second and third go around, because they're just following patterns.
And so a lot of times we have to discover that if someone, and I know you've been accused of being a narcissist before. That story was great that you've told before about
Well, by the way, when I look at narcissistic traits, I'm like, oh, I've done that. Oh, I've done that. Oh, I've done that. I've done that. Am I that? No. But have I done that? Yeah. So, I mean, think about babies. The world revolves around you when you're born. We are born into being myopic because everybody gives us attention for a while. Hopefully we grow out of that at some point, but not everybody does. But most people are good people. You know what? It's rare that you meet someone who's really intentionally, trying to hurt someone else. And okay, yes, they might be myopic, but then if you're staying with them, you got to take ownership on your part. And, pointing the finger at the other person, it means you need more healing for yourself. Because when you can take ownership, even if it was 3% of what went wrong, when you can embody that 3% and say, I take full ownership of that, and you're not charged, you're in a great position to be in a healthy relationship, hopefully with someone else who isn't charged and takes ownership of their part.
Well, and I think it's so true is that key, the step is that, first finding out what commitment looks like with your partner, and then, how to know that you're ready for a commitment is another you cover with that. And then inquiring about past relationships. And that is so key. It's having 3 degrees. Varying levels of charge.
Here's where it gets a little tricky, and I'm going to bring you into the equation. So,
yay.
Widows and widowers. So, there's a natural sympathy for those who have lost a loved one. Okay. I mean, there should be a natural sympathy or even a sense of empathy. Okay. So with the widow and widowers, it's not the same thing. I hated my ex, kind of thing, nor do you have to deal with a contentious ex. Okay. And as we age, we're going to see more widow and widowers. Think about the Golden Bachelor, where two people that got together were both had lost their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So with the widow and widowers, it's a different kind of charge. And that is, how hung up are they on their past relationship? Because it's not a negative charge. It's how much of a positive charge do they have about so do they have a shrine in their home, and it's like, you got to walk by and pay homage to the shrine, or is it like, or is there one photograph that you keep up for the children and that sort of thing? So how much of a charge, because they could be still significantly in love with their past relation, when I say past relationship, their spouse who's passed away, and they're not capable of giving love to someone in the future. That's a different side of the coin, but it's still, how charged are they from the other side of the battery, not the negative, but the positive side.
Well, yeah, and I will address that because I watched. You got me to watch The Golden Bachelor because I said I ain't gonna watch this, and then I'm like, oh, Jonathon, okay. So then I watched it. I'm like, this is a really good show, and we bantered about it back and forth each week, and the first week I was just totally mortified. So I'm like, these poor women are just like, they're just going to be so disappointed. It's going to be. I mean, I was grieving for them. I'm like, they're gonna, the fear or that whole thing of not being chosen. It's just the women, men too, but it's the worst feeling. But anyway, then the two that ended up together are widower and widow. And
I always mix that up, by the way.
Yeah. Unless you've been one, you really don't know. It's like, yeah, I thought about that earlier. Most people don't know that a woman is a widow, a man is a widower. But yeah. But it's true. And I think the difference is how do we hang on to it and what do we feel? For me, I think the thing that people understand who are both widow and widower is that they're more okay and accepting of the fact that you're going to bring them up in conversation. because it was, for me, it was 14 years of my life. And it's like, I love to say, oh yeah, well, we went to this thing. Oh yeah, we saw this. Or yeah, he was, I don't know, an engineer, and so I refer to him as if he's like a family member. But it's not like this, oh, I miss him. Like I wish he were still here. And I do, of course I do, but in a different way. Do you know what I mean? I've moved on. I've healed in such a way that it's more of talking about a family member or a close friend. I hope that makes sense. Versus
no, it actually got me think.
Because I worked with women. As a coach, I worked with widowed women and divorced women, and the ones that are really struggled with the most are the ones that are still 10 years later, they haven't washed the pillowcase he slept on, things like that, and they're still carrying like you said, the whole shrine and everything. It's like they've got things all over. That isn't my case. But at the same time, I feel for them. I have some level of compassion and empathy, but that's the distinction. Does that make sense? They're going to talk about them. We're both going to talk about them, but the difference is I'm referring to them as memories and going through as part of history versus this like clinging to it.
Yeah. I want to address this in a couple different facets. So I recently went to an Alison Armstrong event. For those that aren't familiar with her work, she wrote a book called The Queen's Code, and she basically helps women understand men. And her husband passed away, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago. And he was such an integral part of her life and her coaching. And I mean, everything, a lot of it centered around her husband. I mean, a lot of her work. So I'm at this workshop. And by the way, she's now since been in a new relationship for 3 years.
I've met him. He was at our wedding.
And
she was.
And Allison's talking about Greg, her husband who passed away, substantially throughout this 3-day conversation. And her current partner, I can't think of his name, was sitting in the front row. I thought it was, something like Tom, something. I had to figure it out later. And I was like, God, that must have been kind of tough for him. And so I raised the question. He's like, nah, I just recognize that it's just part of her life. He accepted that. So it's obvious that for those of us in midlife, we have to recognize that we might have had relationships in a variety of different forms. One, we could have been married and had a contentious divorce. Could have gotten married and had a amicable divorce, okay? We could have been married and the other person cheated and left for us and we still pine for that person, okay? We could have been married and the person passes away. We could have a significant relationship where you did the ending and they didn't want it to end, or the other way around. Or you could still be friends with someone in a past relationship. Okay. And I'm bringing this up in the context of what you talked about. I'm still dear friends with somebody who I was in relationship 6 years ago, and the relationship lasted for 6 years. Now, when I say I'm friends with her, we don't talk on the phone every day. In fact, we probably only connect maybe once a month or once every couple months, because we share a lot of the same social circle, number one. We probably see each other a couple times a year because our social circle of friends, have parties and such. Okay, that's number two. I don't pine for her. She doesn't pine for me. She's in a significant relationship. But to me, she's family. When you said, your spouse who passed away, he was part of your family. When you're, entwined with someone, this is where teamwork, bring back that word I mentioned, teamwork. This is what family is all about. When two people are a team together, and even if they adjourn from this team, the love doesn't necessarily just dissipate. It can transmute into a different kind of relationship. And now I recognize for some people hearing this, some people should not be friends. They still want to get back together. They still have emotional sex together. There's a lot of negative things that can happen. But at the same time, when two people can adjourn and still be friendly with one another, that actually demonstrates a level of emotional maturity that so few people are capable of exhibiting in the dating marketplace, particularly those in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s. So, I bring this because I see this person as part of my family, and her children I know, and even my most significant relationship ending, it's not like, we have the same history as the other one, but she's still someone I care about their well-being. It's when it's an unhealthy caring about their well-being, when it's an unhealthy attachment, or maybe one person is unhealthy attached, you have to set boundaries. This is where radical honesty, laying your cards on the table, and the rules of engagement is something that I profess habitually. What is radical honesty? It's just vulnerability, authenticity, and transparency. And transparency simply means if it's material to another person's life, be open about it.
I was going to ask you that because that's something that, like, I know you've said before, you have lots of female friends, and at our age, we are going to have friends of the opposite sex. So how do we manage that? Like, how do we manage that? How do you handle that when you're with your friend? I mean, if you were with a friend, if you were dating a woman and she said, I'm not comfortable with you having any female friends of the opposite sex. Bye. Okay, there you go.
And I'm like, if you already have to if that's your boundary, then we're misaligned. I just don't subscribe to that. Right before we did this interview, one of my dearest, oldest female friends, and by the way, ladies, for you watching this, you want men to have female friends. This is where we learn empathy. This is where we learn, compassion. We didn't learn it from guys, okay? We learned this from women, okay? It's good to have opposite sex friends, and women need male friends because you get that, perspective that you wouldn't otherwise get from your girlfriends. Female friends give each other terrible advice all the time. I know I've just pissed off a few people right now. So
we need you. That's why you do one-on-one coaching with people.
Yeah. And I intentionally work with the opposite sex for that reason. So when I talk about friendships and when I bring up transparency, I want to really cover these points of transparency, laying your cards on the table, and rules of engagement. If you have I already know that if I'm walking down the street and I see a deep hole in the sidewalk, okay? The hole in the sidewalk is I have friends who have a vagina, not a penis, okay? And that might give you pause, okay? I know this. So being transparent is not being secretive about this. This is being forthright about it. That's what transparency is. If I know that this could be a problem for someone just because I've observed this too many times in life. In other words, if you see something enough, you know to address it sooner rather than later. Secrecy is what destroys relationships. Transparency is how you build trust. Transparency is how you build intimacy with someone. Vulnerability, authenticity, transparency is how you build trust and intimacy with someone. The laying our cards on the table, it's like, look, this is who I am and this is all of my experiences in the past. I think a good indicator of someone's future is how they operated in the past, but also the alliterations of how you've operated in the past. Like you looked at me 20 years ago, I was rather self-centric dating. I was a broken man. I was a train wreck. And I wanted sex. I have evolved from that human being through personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. So I don't mind sharing this. Now, some people will say that will be too TMI. It is through our experiences that we get to know about a person. So knowing how they felt about a past experience will give you an idea. Do they have a charge, both positive and negative? Are they pining for that person, asking about their past? And the rules of engagement is simply this. This is my standard. What's your standard? So, for example, my standard is spending 3 or 4 days and nights a week together doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to declaring something serious within the first 3 to 6 months and declaring something, significant after 1 year. That's my standard. Okay. That's my rules of engagement. If your rules of engagement is, I just want to see you at my beck and call, then you know what? We don't engage well with and I call it rules of engagement only because it's just a nice little phrase, but this is my standard and I'm looking for someone who matches my standard.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. And I said you need to have you need to have that on a card so everyone can see your rules of engagement, because I think it inspires us to see what's possible and it gives us examples, like a format, a guide to kind of at least pull ideas from. Because it's so fascinating. It's like, oh, you can actually ask for that. You can actually, that's realistic. Some of us who've been in relationships.
A little thumbs up come up there.
Like, did it? Oh, I don't know. This Zoom has done this sometimes. I'm just not sure. I get these like weird ideas today.
I wonder if someone was watching this yet before it's live.
No, no. Just
you know what? So I'm going to share something with you, Jill. Women to me, when I do my introductory coaching call, before they hire me, I've just observed this. I have 20,000 hours of coaching. Women come to me all the time. Jonathon, I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want in a relationship. And then they go through this proprietary coaching program I created. And can you guess what they say every single time afterwards?
I didn't know what I wanted and I didn't realize.
I didn't know. Yeah. Why didn't they teach me this in school? Why didn't my parents teach me this? And everybody thinks they're the exception. We have this unconscious bias that there's this either we're a doormat and we don't value ourselves, or we're so entitled that we think we're better than others. But there's this other piece that I've observed is we're unconscious to our own blind spots. It's not intentional. It's just a cognitive bias, if you will. And so the reason why when I started this conversation, my clients, the minute they make investment in working with someone like me, is my job is to create clarity. See, most people are wearing rose-colored glasses or foggy glasses when they're dating. My job is to be this, okay? Okay. What does clarity do? Clarity breeds confidence. Clarity breeds confidence. When you can see where you're going, you have more confidence. But more importantly, it leads to better choices because you're no longer dirty or fogged glasses. And most everybody, I'm never rewind that, most everybody is walking around with dirty glasses, but they think they're clear.
I think I told you that when I met you. I think I told you, I said, oh, I know what I want.
Yeah.
You said I was pretty good. You said my pretty clear, but I still had some work. Yeah. We all need work. We have blind spots. You said we have blind spots. So I have questions for you because I'm thinking, you're always focusing on men or women, but as you mentioned in one of your recent interviews, you were saying that the dating advice, men will dismiss it because they assume it's just for women, but really you're talking to men too in a lot of ways of things to do. It's not just a one-way street. So, because I'm, and I think what makes you so unique too is that you focus on midlife. It's not like most dating coaches that I've seen where they're, for younger people in their 20s and 30s, is that they're teaching them how to, talk to women, how to dress, how to flirt, and how to get laid, right? That's what they usually do. And, here's the script on how to get a woman, how to talk to you, how to go to the hot woman at the bar and, get her to go home with you. But, that, they do. I just think that's
it's okay.
Yeah. So yes, you were. But you see that, right? So it's give me the tips and tricks. And so, but they really teach how to find a woman who's worth going all in for. And what does that take? I mean, what it takes it to be, what does it take? Is it what it take? I guess what it is beyond that superficial side is I think men are wanting more, but they're missing something. And I think what it is what does it take to be a high value man? They don't see what it is to be a high value man. And what is it what do you think it is? What's the difference?
So,
How do you take someone
well,
who's just, I'm taking this stupid advice, but I want more than that. I don't know how to do it.
yeah. So, well, the reason why, why I work with women, partially because I feel like it's a payback for my unconscious behavior. Women are different than men in this regard. Men typically seek advice on how to make money to meet women or how to pick up women. That's where they seek advice most of the time. Okay. So like people even go to Tony Robbins. I make more money, I get women. Okay. It's kind of like what Tony Montana said. First you make the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. Okay. There's almost this narrative from the movie Scarface that's been embedded in us, baby boomers or Gen Xers. So why do I coach women? Is that women, okay, so when a guy is lost driving somewhere, he'll just close his eyes and figure out how he'll find where he needs to go. A woman will say, can we pull over to the gas station and ask the gas attendant where we go? Women seek direction in relationship far more than men, probably ninefold. I mean, the bookstores are written for women, number one. Number two, most women don't realize this one piece that is so valuable. My mom knew this, but most women don't know this. Men are trainable. So when you learn the mechanics to a healthy, happy relationship, all you have to do is train them, because men inherently want their woman happy and they want to get sex from you. Okay. They want you happy and they want to get sex from you. So believe it or not, even though in the movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, he said the man is the head and she's the neck kind of thing. What that really means is you're turning the guy in each direction. So when you learn all you need to do, your job is to train men. Now, I know that goes against all of your resistance, but he's like a dog. Guys are trainable. You just have to know how to do it in a subtle, cute kind of way, because you both are the receivers of the gift. So women come to me for my coaching, and guess what they do? They have all my work. The men that they date, you know what they do is say, hey, I'm working with the dating coach, and they pull out the questionnaires and they have the guys do it. And you know what most men say? This is brilliant. I'm like, God, I wished I thought of this. I've just made their job easier. It's like I'm giving you the cliff notes without you having to read the book. So women who actually encourage the men to do the work, like they're, share the work I've done or share my videos. Most guys watch my videos because I'm impartial. I think women are just as fucked up as men, even though my audience is women and I'm talking about how fucked up guys are. I'm like, ladies, you're no picnic either. So when a guy hears that, he's like, yeah, right. You guys are no picnic either.
Okay. So I have to challenge you on this one a little bit. I agree with you about women seeking more help ninefold. I agree with that. I'm sure that's true. And
relationship wise,
and that men are trainable. I agree with that. What I question is, because I've been in a couple of these relationships where it's the coaching part of it, is women turn into, we turn into coaches if we're not careful, is they want us to lead them, but then they depend on it. And then it also becomes annoying. Like, believe me, I have said, hey, let's go to a relationships retreat, or let's go read this book. And and this is where we have to have the discernment to know when the guy goes, no, I don't think so. That for me is
well, I have to preface something that I didn't say in my little monologue there for a moment. Okay. And you brought up high value man, which whether I like that term or not,
whatever,
we'll just
you can call it something else.
An emotional grown-up man versus a transactional man. Okay, let's if we're going to call it high value, we'll call him an emotional grown-up versus someone who's just in it transactionally speaking. Okay. When I say a man is trainable, you lead by example. However, you find someone at your watermark. Okay. If you're finding someone where their capacity to co-create is very low and you have a high capacity for co-create, you've got the wrong watermark. So when you encourage someone to do these types of things, they're going to be resistant because they're not at the same watermark as you. So it's important because what watermark represents is alignment. So, I have a couple, they just got married. I went to their wedding earlier this year, and he'd done no real significant personal development before, but he had a good marriage, or he had a marriage that didn't work out. He was raised with good parents, and he's just a good man. Okay. Just a good man, an attorney, a little bit introspective, but not overly introspective. And he was a serial monogamous, meaning he had one relationship that lasted a year and a half, another relationship. So it wasn't like he wasn't he had a long-term mating strategy, but they didn't really ever pan out. So now he meets this woman. His name is Rob. Her name is Lorraine. He's into woo-woo stuff. She's into all kinds of crystals and, workshops and all this stuff. And he was like, okay. And now, and he's done dozens of them with her, we've even done a men's group together, without the women kind of thing, because he was like, this is fun and cool. So maybe there might not be at your watermark per se, but it sounds cool to be at that level. Okay. You can't train. When I say men are trainable, there's certainly, you have to be either there has to be a desire to meet you at this level, particularly, or they have to be at the watermark to meet this level. And again, you have to, this is a particular personal development has to be something is really for those that have a curiosity and a desire to grow beyond their limitations or where they're at in their life. They seek a better life. They seek more happiness, more joy, more harmony. So, and how do you vet for that? This is the kind of work that I do in my private coaching, is to have those radical, honest questions or conversations early on to see if you're aligned with each other, and then lay your cards on the table and establish the rules of engagement. And yes, sometimes it's a roll of the dice, but I'd rather have, 4 of the dice have 6 on it, and the other 4 have 6 on it. I have a good chance of rolling a 12 than I would a lower number than that.
This is so incredibly helpful, because I'm looking at this and thank you for clarifying that, because the watermark is the key, or someone who has the desire to get to that stage or that level. And I think what's happened to a lot of us, both men and probably women, but probably women more, is that we're playing in that, again, going back, is playing the game with someone who's not at the watermark. And then when it doesn't work out, or we're feeling bad about the relationship, or we're not feeling satisfied, is that we think it's us and there's something wrong. And so we beat ourselves up and we say, another failed relationship. And it's that we're just not playing with someone who's at the same watermark. And I guess we always have to look at it. I mean, I'm always looking at myself and saying, okay, where did I go wrong? What could I do differently? How do I need to change? Who do I need to be to make this, what could I have done differently? But at the same time, it's not always about me either. It's like, am I trying to say that I'm comparing myself with or I'm looking at this from a standpoint of this was a defective, I don't want to use the word defective, but like at a different watermark. And here I've been looking at
misaligned.
Misaligned. I'm just so I'm looking at myself going, man, I just am not good at this. This isn't working. I'm never going to find anybody. Well, it's because I've been playing in a field.
That's a defeatist point of view. I'm never going to find anyone. Then guess what?
I'm saying that I think people feel that way a lot of times. I think a lot of people are, I see that when I'm in your calls, as a lot of women are feeling that sometimes is, they feel a little defeated. But again, a lot of times we have to look at it is that clarity is, are you playing a game? Are you playing with or meeting people that are at your watermark? And if you're not, why not? And that's what I think really well.
And I'm going to end on this note, not that this is a profound note to end on, but so when you're first communicating with someone, I think it's important to really establish, at least for me, this is just establish your 3 most important criteria. And for me, a person has a connection with the divine, a connection with source, a connection with something beyond themselves, spirituality, that sort of thing. That's kind of important to me. The second piece is they have a real desire to do personal development work, self-help, spiritual work, grow, heal childhood wounds and traumas. Not that it's excessive, I mean, if they, because people that have had real significant trauma need a shitload of work, but I mean, I'm not going to exclude those people as well, but there's a desire to heal that. The third one is a personal one that I'm not going to share publicly. But know what your three must-haves are besides his height, the kind of car he drives. I'm being tongue in cheek now. Or job, because for those of us in the personal development world, there are plenty of us out there. There's, you have a scarcity or abundance mindset. There's an abundance of both men and women alike. Okay. Just know your three cores and have that be the questions that you want answered before you even go on a date with someone. And that'll put the odds in how they say in Hunger Games, may the odds forever be in your favor.
I appreciate it today, Jonathon. Really, really great, valuable information. And I value your friendship so much. So thank you for the time. And I'm sure everyone's going to, wanting to get to know you more and find you on your channel as well. So everyone, please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and find Jonathon's channel. We'll post it all below. You can reach out to him to get more information on his group as well as his one-on-one coaching. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Stay connected.